Good morning. 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 We wait for 2-3 minutes and then we start. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm good. Good morning. Okay. Good morning. We'll wait for what? 1 more minute, 1.5 minutes more. We have to discuss today. We've discussed non-Harappan Chalcolithic. We have to discuss the Indus Valley Civilization. A very important discussion, a very important area out of which questions come. And thereafter, we'll talk about the Aryan migration and then talk about the Vedic age. Vedic age. This is the basic agenda for today. Indus Valley, Aryan migration, Vedic age. Good morning. Good morning. Yes, it's a routine. It's a habit. That's all. So, 1, 2, 3. Hathnora and Uday are not Paleolithic sites, would be early human sites, hominid sites, not Paleolithic. Nothing else has been found. Ochre colored pottery and this Aniket pottery, leave it for it's not ochre color, it's a redware, but we'll discuss these things when we'll discuss the art and culture. I'll discuss pottery with you there, don't worry about that. The culture part, you leave it to there. Odai means small stream, so it may be near a small stream. Vikram, okay. Now, we've discussed yesterday the non-Harappan Chalcolithic cultures. Today, total number of questions out of history 2025 in the examination. Today, we enter the next zone. When will modern be done by you? I'm taking it in the evening batch. Yesterday, I started. Weekend and evening, both are with me only. Okay. That is Anjali, the same thing. Don't worry. We are now starting a new chapter, but module is the same, which is Indus Valley Civilization. And yesterday we understood Paleolithic, which is fire, Mesolithic, which is microlith and domestication of animals and burial practices, and Neolithic, which is basically the concept of agriculture and how sedentary life, complex society, and early state formations comes through. Now, all of this is the initial prehistorical part. We now go into the next most important phase, which is the proto-historic, which is Indus Valley civilization. Now, Indus Valley civilization, and there was used to be a name called Harappan civilization, are the same thing. Harappa was the first site which was found, so therefore it was named after the first site. But over the period of time, the people have moved away from using Harappan civilization as the word and rather moved towards the concept of Indus Valley civilization, because the location of most of these sites are around the Indus itself. Now, how Neolithic, Chalcolithic different? Neolithic is only stone, Chalcolithic is copper plus stone. Now, when we talk about the Indus Valley civilization, you would have heard about multiple types of important sites which people tend to refer to out of this civilization: Dholavira, Lothal, Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and recently Rakhigadi. And there's a lot of recent random series which have also been made on certain channels which talk about Sonoli and all. But I will tell you one thing: stay away from that type of narrative, because that is not part of academic history till this point. So they've done their own analysis, they've done their something automatically. You do not have to worry about that. So please stay away from popular imagination of this civilization. Now, we need to understand 3 4 very important concepts here, which is that you have to understand how was it found, then what are the characteristics, what is the economy, what is the society, what is the polity, and what is the religion. These are very basic questions which need to be asked about the Indus Valley civilization, which the UPSC also is interested in. So Indus Valley civilization is a very important topic for prelims and mains both, because it is an art and culture question also. And we will revisit this topic again in art and culture. But right now we have to talk about the why, how, where. Now, how did Indus Valley civilization be found? How was it found? And it's basically a chance discovery. Chance discovery means that nobody was finding the Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization flourished sites. No, it's not. Indus Valley civilization is a Chalcolithic culture, is a Bronze Age civilization. So certain parts of it previously may have been Neolithic sites, but right now we are talking about IVC, proper Bronze Age civilization. Now, the question is to how was it found? Nobody was looking for the Harappan site or Harappa itself. It was basically found by a British surveyor and officer who was basically surveying the Punjab sector for basically putting railway tracks in that area. So when the British were expanding in the Punjab sector, that Punjab Pakistan sector, they were surveying the areas for where the railway track should go from. And a person called Charles Mason thereafter had a chance discovery wherein he found artifacts which looked like they were not from that period and maybe from a period before what we call as the Indian civilization. And therefore, Charles Mason, by chance, in 1826, found this area. Thereafter, what happens is that the British establish what is called the Archaeological Survey of India. The Archaeological Survey of India. And the Archaeological Survey of India under Alexander Cunningham now starts to survey this site. So he was the first proper what is called the DG of Archaeological Survey of India, Director General. He will be the first person to visit these sites and understand their importance. And in 1924, John Marshall, who will be the successor of Alexander Cunningham, the second DG, he will reveal to the world in a London newspaper that in India we have found a old civilization going back to the Egyptian and the Mesopotamian period. So the British were keen in doing this because they wanted to ascertain what is the nature of Indian civilization. Before 1833, before 1840s, the British have a curiosity about the Indian civilization, and they want to know what is the date till which, how ancient is the civilization itself. And ASI was made for the same reason, so as to check that is the whole concept working. And John Marshall was given the task. And John Marshall was the first man to also use the word Indus Valley civilization, because he placed it in the Indus River Valley itself. So nobody was looking for Harappa. Now, after Charles Mason is able to find these artifacts, when he was going to survey the railway tracks itself, ASI will be formed under Cunningham, and in 1924, Marshall is going to tell the world that a civilization has been found in a weekly called the Illustrated London Times, and he will say the words Indus civilization for the first time. Now the question is, what are these sites? Now there are 1,000 sites of the Indus Valley civilization, and the beauty of this is that they are called a civilization because you can be at Sutka Gendor here, or you could be at Alamgirpur here, or you could be at Malwan here, or you could be at Ropar, as north as Manda if you want to go. The point is, everywhere there is standardization. Everywhere there's standardization. Same exact pottery is formed, same exact pottery is found, same exact techniques are used, same exact weight and measures are used. Everything is exactly the same. That shows a level of standardization and uniformity, making them one civilization, which was not true for the other contemporaries which are there, which existed parallelly, wherein there were four different civilized cultures in that sense. Now, I'm coming to the number of sites. The story with regard to the number of sites is that initially we found the most important ones, which are known to the world quite a lot. For example, Ganeriwala, you have Chanudaro, and thereafter you have the site of uh, Kotdizi, Mohenjo-daro. So these are sites which basically are considered very, very important. Upwards of the stream Ravi, you have Harappa. These are very known sites. There were close to 460 or 440 sites which used to exist before independence. 440 sites had been actually calculated and basically excavated. But now the Indian partition, or the partition is going to happen, and all 440, most of them will go into Pakistan. So now there's a major push on the ASI to find Harappan sites in India. And after 1947, we found 646 more. So there are 646 in India and close to 440 in Pakistan. And this means that there are 1,000 sites total, close to 1,000 sites total for Harappa. Now, there is no student who should be dumb enough to learn all 1,000 and also has the capacity to do it, because it is not physically possible to do it. 1,000 sites nobody can remember. So the sites which are going to be referred to in the class are the most important ones. I have a slide for that also. So from time to time, it would be good that you go through these maps also, because that could give a certain height of understanding. See, I've given you three maps in that sense. This is the map given in the NCRT, which talks about the early Harappan sites, which I'm coming to. Thereafter, this is one very, very, very important site map, because it talks about Kalibangan, Rakhigadi, Banavali, then you have Harappa, you have Manda, thereafter Chanudaro, Dholavira, Lothal, Rangpur, Nageshwar, then Mohenjo-daro, Sutka Gendor. These are very important sites. But the problem is this is still incomplete. That is why I've given you this slide. This is the Upinder Singh map, and it is more and more what we call as a comprehensive, and I would like you to go through it from time to time. And my suggestion to you would be, if possible, over a period of time, go through these sectors. go through these sectors, which is that try to go through the names once, not asking you to learn it. Just go through the names once. That, for example, Padri, Rosdi, you have Lothal, you have what is called Surkotada. You just go through it once. So in the examination, memory works like this: that if you've seen it, it may sound that you've heard. So just have to refer to the sites I've referred to in the class. Other than that, I'm just asking you to go through the maps from time to time, if possible. At least once a month, try to go through this map. It will help you in retaining a lot of things. So you can't just leave it, but the ones which are referred to in the PPT are the most important. Now the question comes, what is the north, south and east-west extent of the Harappan civilization? Which is the northernmost site is basically Manda, which is in Jammu and Kashmir. People talk about Shotugai as the northernmost, but it is technically incorrect because Shotugai was a raw material site, not a proper site of the Harappan civilization. Then you have Sutka Gendor, which I showed you, which is the easternmost site, westernmost site, which is in Afghanistan today. Then in Maharashtra, we have Daimabad. Again, you will find multiple other sites written for southernmost. Go with Daimabad. And the easternmost site is Alamgirpur. Now, there is a very interesting concept that if you look at the map, they stop at the beginning of just before the Yamuna, and they are not going beyond this point. They're not going beyond this point. They are concentrated in this sector. And there's a reason for that. Can anybody tell me why is that they are not crossing that Yamuna and Ganga Doab sector? Yes, it's densely forested. Yes, it is densely forested, but it is because of a lack of something. Yes, Pal, very good. It is a lack of iron. See, these forests are heavy forests, very heavy marshy terrain. Copper is a metal which is good, but it is not very durable when it comes to cutting. So, because they do not have an understanding of iron, they cannot cut down the forest systematically across Yamuna Ganga Doab itself. Burza home is a Neolithic site, not a Harappan site. So very simply, please don't mix it up. Don't do this. Over 24 hours, you should not forget things. Those are not Harappan sites. They are independent Neolithic sites. So what I mean to say is that the reason why they stop at this point is the lack of iron and the understanding of iron. This is a very important point you need to understand because that helps you in eliminating a lot of things in the examination. Because in the examination, if a site is given in the Gangatic plain or in the east, you automatically reject it because it will never be in that area, because the Harappan civilization never went or did not have the reach to that area in that sense. So what we've established since the beginning is where are the sites, how have we found them, chance discovery by the British, and what is the north, south, east and west extent of the Harappan civilization. Anybody has any issue in understanding these three things? Rakhi Gadi is here. Very important agricultural site, Rakhi Gadi. Anybody has any issue in this? Water transportation was difficult. So, no, it's not that. They are in the Indus Valley. Why would they have a problem with water? As it is, there is also one river which used to be there called the Saraswati River, which is now not there. IVC is part of Chalcolithic. Harappan sites is Chalcolithic because no, Chalcolithic means copper and stone, not iron and stone. Alamgirpur seems near to the Ganga River. Sure, it is very close to the Ganga River, Yamuna system, but not across it. Okay. Water harvesting was there? Yes, it was there. It means north, south, east, west. Yes. What means is that what is the northernmost site, southernmost site, easternmost site, and westernmost site? The Ahmedabad would be the southernmost, because in this you are going downwards like this. So again, because a lot of you still joining in for some reason after 22 minutes of the class, Charles Mason found it, ASI develops it, Cunningham was the first one, John Marshall was the second one who actually published it to the world. Very simply, this is the northern, southern, eastern, and westernmost sites. And Manda, sometimes you will find Shotugai. Shotugai is not the right answer, it's Manda. Thereafter, looking at the map of the Indus Valley civilization, it is very clear that they don't cross a certain point across the Ganga Yamuna Doab because of the densely forested, what we call as Doab sector. They do not have access to iron, they don't have understanding of iron. And on the other hand, they all are following this river, which is the Indus River. This is the river which is basically the reason why it is named as the Indus Valley civilization, because of the presence of the Indus River. Now, the Indus River, as I said, had one more tributary which used to be there, and it is given the Ghagar Hakra River and also a Saraswati River. So don't think that these areas were very dry the way they were right now. They were much more different in this period. And more than that, you have to just go through this slide from time to time to understand the sites where they are. There are 1,000 sites. You do not actually have the capacity, or no one has the capacity to go through every site is not possible. Remember, certain sites I'm going to refer to in class. Can I now give you the time period of the Harappan civilization and we go forward? They are not in Vechri. Rajasthan and the Kutch area of India was not as dry as it is right now. There is evidence to say that the Rajasthan desert, the Thar desert, used to have access, was much greener and had access to water. So this whole area was much more greener at the time period we are talking about, close to 4,000 years ago, and it became drier over a period of time. And one of the reasons was that the Saraswati River also started to, in a way, vanish because of the heat. So it's geologically, Earth is also changing, and Indian subcontinent is also changing. I will tell you, don't give me random names of sites. I know you know, but understand what I'm trying to argue here. Okay. We will discuss the artifacts of the IVC in the culture class. Yes, seals and all, but I have to discuss other things also with you. Now, the basic time period of the Indus Valley civilization, there is what we call as early Harappan phase, in which the sites are developing. There's a mature Harappan phase, which is the proper highest point, and there's a decline or late Harappan phase. Harappan phase. Sir, IVC just started. Sure. It's been 25 minutes we've started. Okay. Now, the most zenith period in which IVC was what it was is basically 2600, 1900 BCE. 1900 to 1700, it is believed that it started to decline. And from, if you go by the dates which Upinder Singh gives, from 3200 itself, you start to get evidences. From 3200 itself to 2600, you start to get evidences of Harappan sites in that regard. 1700 is, these 200 years is the major period of decline, but certain sites still existed till 1300 BCE, but very rarely and localized in that regard. So our most important period is this, wherein we are concentrating on the period in which they are at the highest point. There's an early phase, there's a late phase. We'll discuss the decline of the Harappan civilization. But this is the phase we have to discuss vis-a-vis characteristics and nature. Now, if we are clear about the geography of the Indus Valley civilization, I want to discuss a thing out of which the standard questions come, which is characteristics of the Indus Valley civilization. Are we clear with regards to geography, why it is called Indus Valley civilization, how was it found, and what is the north, south, east, west extent? Where are the sites generally located? Why are they not located in the Gangetic Plain? And what is the basic point of this civilization, which is standardization and uniformity across the civilization itself? So water was the only reason IBC happened. That is technically not true. They are based on the river systems. That is an important resource. That is because these sites are in areas which are very fertile. They have access to copper, and that makes them very, very civilized in the way that they become urban and start to exhibit certain qualities. So the point is firstly, some of you still joined late. You're trying to figure it out. I'm giving you time to now figure it out, that the geography is done and the concept is done. Now, if you are all still, I can see people joining because I know your joining time. I want to now talk about something which matters in the examination. Yes? Okay. Okay. We all are on the same page. Right. Okay. Now, when we talk about the IVC, there are certain characteristics which you find in most of the sites. One or two exceptions here and there are there. Yes, it will, Jasveer. Most of the sites. Certain exceptions may be there, but these characteristics make what the IVC is what is called as an urban civilization. And these are the characteristics which actually talk about it. So, the first thing which you will find in an Indus Valley civilization site, most of them, is the concept of upper town, citadel, and lower town. Now, basically, if you go to a Harappan site, for example, this is Mohenjo-daro. What will happen is that you will find that the site, a certain part of it is actually elevated. So if you look at the site from the side profile, the site looks like something like this. This could be in the middle, this could be in the side, doesn't really matter. But there's a certain part of the site which is elevated and the certain part of the site which is on the ground. Basically, making platforms, they used to raise a part of the civilization. Now, this is called upper town citadel. This is the citadel, and this is the lower town. Now, the purpose of this division, there is no connection between ash mounts and this platform. Please don't do that. Nothing related to ash mounts in this. I'll tell you the reason. Let me tell you the reason rather than before you guess it. Is that the reason is a spatial division of what we call as purpose driven town planning. This is called town planning, and it's a purpose driven division. On the upper town, whatever we find, whatever institutions we find, these are, citadel is a word used for upper town. It's a term, citadel. These are public buildings and of administrative purpose, whilst the lower town, the lower town the lower town on the other hand was residential area, which is private space. Now this is a very, it's an urban civilization. It is, yes, it is an urban civilization. This is called urban town planning. This is a very sophisticated understanding of making a civilization, which is that you keep the public buildings here and the private buildings here. This is a very sophisticated understanding that whatever institutions are there on the top are for everyone. So it is raised and it is available to everybody. And on the ground, there is the residential areas. This is also indicative of stratification, because there would be a ruling class. We don't know who they are. That question I will tell you. Why don't we know who they are? But there is also a division between the people who have power and who do not have power. So upper town, lower town concept, citadel and lower town concept is very interestingly linked to the division of space according to purpose. So it is very important to understand that this means that the site was already planned before it came into existence. So the fact is that the existence or the point that they are developing civilizations before doing something, they're thinking about it, is actually very, very interesting. It's a very sophisticated understanding that way, because this way you will find in 99% of all the sites, which is a division of upper town, lower town, upper town, lower town, which is citadel and lower town. Now, it's not how did it help. It's a way of division. Private area is private area. So you try to keep this area away from public area. The Great Bath is not inside someone's residential area. It is very strategically located in the city center. So please understand this point, that for us as Indians, town planning seems to be a problem, because we first make a road and then think what to do with it. So please understand this point. Town planning needs a lot of strategic placement. And town planning actually shows that you are putting thought before you construct, which is in itself very, very important. Anthropology, sir, we were told that IBC is egalitarian society. I don't know who is your anthropology, sir, and I don't know why he's saying that it is egalitarian. There in IBC, there's no egalitarianism. It's a complex society of social stratification. Everybody has their division of labor. They are doing their own tasks, but there is somebody who is having more power. That is why citadel exists. So first is the concept of upper town and lower town. Are we clear with regards to why this division exists? The concept of private and public. Yes. So the remains of these publics were, yes, we have found these whole sites. Archaeologists have found these sites as we have found, we started to excavate, we found upper town, we found lower town, we found everything. Absence of stratified society, if yes, then is it differentiate? Again, when did yeah, this is the problem. When did I say there is absence of stratified society? Did I say that? See, I know you know, but stop it. Because what you are doing is you are cluttering your mind with things which you have read in random places. So stop that, because it will then mess up your mind and you will start to overthink. I've only told you one characteristic right now, and nothing more, nothing less. I have to talk about economy, I have to talk about society, I have to talk about polity, I have to discuss a lot of things. Are we clear with regards to upper town and lower town? Movie Mohenjo-daro has somewhat shown about this civilization. First, please, हाथ जोड़ता हूं, don't watch these movies. That movie itself is जितना दूर रहो, that will be better. It's all, I don't have a word to say for it. It has no base on nothing what Harappan civilization was. So please don't watch movies like this. Okay. Now, I've only told you once, one basic point. I want everybody to be on the same page. We've discussed the geography, we've discussed the time period, we've discussed the discovery. Now I'm discussing the first characteristic, division of space according to administrative purpose or purpose. Something which we don't do till today, which is the way, see, understand this point. This is an era of, it's a bronze era civilization. There's no modern excavators, there's no modern technology. 4,000 years ago, they are planning cities. That in itself is a very big development and a very big distinction of everything which we see today. So now, upper town, lower town is one thing. The second feature which is exhibited across the civilization is what are called as town planning based roads and water management system. See, throughout this whole site, be it upper town or be it lower town, they used to have roads which used to cut each across at 90-degree angles. They have what is called as a grid pattern. You'll find it on the upper town also. You'll find it in the lower town also. Which is that you have what is called as a grid pattern in roads, and roads go from north to south and east to west and cut across each other at 90-degree angle. Grid pattern is something which is again very important to understand, because this means that the roads were first planned, then the houses, and then the citadel. But there is an exception. The exception is, whilst all the sites have a grid pattern in roads, which is grid pattern would mean this. Banavali, now please pay attention. Banavali is a site which has a radial pattern. Now, radial pattern means Banavali means that it is concentric circles. And these concentric circles are connected via roads. So radial means you have radial tires, meaning circular pattern. This you will only find in Banavali. In every other site, you'll find grid pattern. Grid pattern. This is grid, which is basically 90-degree angle. On the other hand, here, this is replicated everywhere. This is replicated everywhere. One exception is there, which you need to know. So this is the first point, which is grid pattern in roads. Now, if that was not enough, every road had drainage and sewage system with it. Meaning that if there's a road which is going, on one side, they will keep the sewage or drainage, and the other side, on the other side, they will keep fresh water flow. So they have drainage sewage side with it plus water management. Now, very simply, this means that they're not mixing gray water. Gray water is basically used water and fresh water. They are always keeping them apart from each other. Basically, every road in the Harappan civilization had a sewage and a freshwater resource. Now, that was extremely sophisticated, because till today, in certain parts of India, a single road is dug up multiple times because certain departments cannot coordinate with each other. The public works department is going to make the road, then somebody is going to remember we did not put the sewage line, so they dig up that road, then put the sewage line. Once the sewage line will be put in, somebody is going to remember the water source is not there, they'll again dig up that same road, they put the water source. By the time water source is put, the telephone company will remember we needed to put wires also, they will put the wires. Then someone else will remember that wire is done, but we have not put in the electricity wires itself, so they will again dig it up. Then GAIL will come, dig it up for gas. Then some fiber company will come, dig it up for internet. And very simply, by the time the road will be done, the government would have changed and they will start to again dig up that road. So understand this point, that this is very, very sophisticated, because before they made the road, they already know what to do with it. This means that they were manipulating the water coming from the rivers to go into every household via what is called as pipes and chutes. The simple point is that drainage system inbuilt into roads is not something which half of Delhi has. Outer parts of Delhi till today don't have a drainage system. There are certain parts of Western Delhi and Eastern Delhi which struggle with even water lines. And you understand this, that this is all being done. They don't know how geometry is. They don't know, they basically do not understand, or they have no understanding of modern geometry. They have no understanding of angles. They have no understanding. They have no modern equipment. And still they're able to do this. And to add to this, every household has rainwater harvesting. Plus, the biggest thing which till today India struggles in? Toilet. Every household and street with public purpose had drainage and toilets on it. India till today is not full, what is called as ODF status, open defecation free status. India still does not have 100%. This whole civilization, every household had water harvesting system, rainwater harvesting system, which is to make sure that the water which comes through the rain, it goes into these water lines which are there with the house. And every house had a proper water based toilet. It's not even the pit septic tank, it is the drainage system connect all the toilets together. So the point is that you can see they are exhibiting certain qualities which are very rare even in today. With the resources, with the power, with the money which the states have, it's still not the way people are living today. That is why it's called an urban civilization, because urbanization is something which is being exhibited here. Now add to it, there is also what is called a standardization of brick size, wherein city wall bricks and house bricks were all in the same ratio, meaning every brick you will find which in Harappan civilization is exactly the same ratio. This you will find in 10 is to 20 is to 40 centimeters, and this you will find is to 7 is to 14 is to what you call as 28 centimeters. 1 is to 2 is to 4. 1 is to 2 is to 4. Every brick, go to Manda, go to Daimabad, go to Alamgirpur, go to Sutka Gandor. Standardization of bricks was something which was astonishing. I will ask you to do 3 signatures right now, and every signature is going to be different. You can't sign your own name the same way 3 times. They are making lakhs of bricks, exactly same size, not even 1 centimeter up down. This is high level of sophistication and nuance. Remembering that this civilization existed 5,000 years ago. So standardization of bricks is something which the Harappans used to follow across their empire. Bricks were made in certain areas. They were always made, the big bricks were always 10 is to 20 is to 40 centimeters, and the smaller bricks were 7 is to 14 is to 28 centimeters. So the point is that we are talking about a civilization which exhibits certain qualities which not even modern cities exhibit. And that can only be done with what we call as centralized town planning. Centralized town planning. This is called proper town planning. Going further, the houses could be single or double story, and they also had houses standard design with central courtyard. Every house has the same design, which is they have a central space which is open, which you would know as the angan, which still exists in certain parts of India, but we've now moved away from this concept wherein there's space in between the house, and the rooms are around this central courtyard. Further, if there's a house, and there's the main road going from this side, the main road is going, and there's a smaller road here. It's not a hall, it's called the courtyard, central courtyard, chabutra, angan, you would know. Let's be honest, you're not Americans that you don't understand what is angan. So we all understand it. You've seen it in movies. So don't act like a Britisher. That what is this angan concept? No. Angan, everybody knows. Central courtyard, how rooms around it with a central, it could be a tree, could be the tulsi, could be anything. So please don't act like it's like a hall. No, it's not like a hall. It's the house is made in a different way. It's called a chabutra, it's called an angan. Everybody has it. In certain parts of South India, still this construction is there. So please, no Americanness here. Okay. Now, hall with no roof. So we all know what is an angan. Now, when it came to houses, if there's the main road here and there's a side road here, they have a very nuanced understanding of privacy also, because the road, the gate will always open into the side road. On the this side, on the main road side, no windows and no doors. So if you are going through the main street of that area, you will not find any doors, so that people's house, and imagine the way we live today. We have doors exactly opening into the main road. So very simply, they made sure that their houses never opened into the main street itself, so that their houses had privacy, so that the person going through that area does not look inside. So if you add all of this, it becomes a truly sophisticated civilization with a lot of interesting features which they exhibit as a form of one aspect of their understanding. So I would like to bring all of these things together in one slide and write it down and move on to the other aspects of the industrial civilization. Okay, perfect. Now, just to add to it, the characteristics which are exhibited by the industrial civilization. This is the town planning of Mohenjo-daro. This is Mohenjo-daro. This is how the citadel and the lower town were separated from each other. And you can see that there's a physical separation also in a way. Only roads used to go to this area. The granary, college of priests, the great bath, all big public buildings are in the citadel. And the lower town, we have the residential areas. And citadel lower town is the most important feature exhibited by most of the sites. Their grid pattern based roads were east to west, north to south, and drainage system was well planned and very efficient. On the other hand, the houses had a central courtyard concept around which the whole house was based. And more than that, sewage chutes and pipes were separated from drains which were used to collect rainwater. Harappan civilization made elaborate arrangements for drinking water and bathing. This striking features the uniformity in average brick size, which is 7 is to 14 is to 28, and 10 is to 10 is to 20 is to 40, which is big bricks and small bricks. People lived in houses of different sizes but had central courtyard, and doorways and windows never opened into the main street. So let us summarize of characteristics. So when I talk about the summary of characteristics, we just have to summarize these points. And ironically, when I will teach you art and culture, you will realize that the same qualities which we are discussing right now, characteristics, are exactly the same for architectural features of the Indus Valley civilization. So you learn it once and you can answer both mains question and prelims question in that sense. So, Adil, what are you not getting? What is till yet मतलब क्या होता है? We are talking about the characteristics of the Indus Valley civilization. So we are trying to summarize what features we saw in this civilization when we excavated it, and the aspects are what I'm summarizing here. So there's nothing we are doing extraordinary. We are just discussing the features of Indus Valley civilization sites we've seen across the board in that regard. So if I had to summarize the Indus Valley civilization sites, the way I do it is that you have what we call as citadel or upper town. And sir, you told it was agrarian, egalitarian. They had political setup. Shweta, I did not say it was I did not say it was egalitarian. Someone's random anthropology teacher said it, and I was contradicting it. Pay attention. Upper town and lower town. The institutions which we fight on the upper town are administrative and public institutions, and the lower town, what we see is that these are the areas in which we have houses. So very simply, this is the residential area, and the beauty of this is that every road had a water line and a drainage line, which is that drainage and fresh water all were separated, drainage and sewage lines, and these are where fresh water sources or pipes. These houses have rain water harvesting, and their design is central courtyard with no doors and windows towards the main street, and you have grid pattern. And if you look at the bricks have standard ratio 1 is to 2 is to 4, or 10 is to 20 is to 40, and 7 is to 14 is to 28 centimeters. So pipe is all terracotta, what we call as mud. This all brick lined pipes. They only know copper, so how can they make pipe? So one is the concept of upper town, lower town, central courtyard, thereafter rainwater harvesting, drainage, fresh water, sanitization, and grid pattern. Are we clear with regards to all of this? How archaeologists differentiate between freshwater drainage? Because when it's very easy. When water evaporates, If it's fresh water, it will not leave, or it will leave only salts. When it is drainage based or it's sewage line, it what will happen is it will leave other residuals also. So you can make it out. You can make it out by microscopic study of that brick itself. So very simply, are these 8 points, with the exception of Banavali being radial, are these 8 points clear to everyone? Point 8 is grid pattern of roads. All roads will meet at 90-degree angle, and that is what is called grid pattern. Right? You can add ninth, which is toilets. And water management system, and this becomes complete. Drainage and fresh water are not in the same line of road. Yes, they're not in the same line. They'll be parallel to each other. The road is going to be in between, and the sewage line will be on one side, and the fresh water is going to be on the other side. Okay. How they create physical division? By giving distance between them, by creating platforms. Platforms were made, and the citadel was made higher. Now, multi-story buildings ensure that the buildings, they have stairs, they have multi-story buildings. That is not a big thing. Banavali is an exception. Okay, Banavali is radial. Kamula will discuss why world history is difficult to understand when we'll discuss world history. Are we all on the same page? And there could be a defense wall, yes, and there could not be. It's not a set pattern. Are we all clear about the characteristics of the Indus Valley civilization? Citadel could be man-made also, could be natural also. In most cases, it was man-made. Okay. Since the roads have grid patterns, do the waters coincide? No. The flow was such that they made sure that fresh and grey water pollution never happened, which we till not do today. All sewage lines in India, or even multiple parts of the world, go into rivers, which are freshwater resources. So you're drinking your sewage in your water, which is coming through the river itself. So that is not the way they used to work. Great bath is only in one place, Harappa, in Mohenjo-daro. Banavali is exception in terms of road. Everything else is the same. Yes. Can we move on? Are we all on the same page? I want everybody's yes. You're sleeping, but I need you to say yes. It's not that difficult. This is, once you learn it for this, you will learn it for art and culture automatically. Okay. Yes, the British did not know what to do with this civilization. They were extremely surprised that there could be an ancient civilization like this, which is the biggest city of the civilization. There are multiple. Ganeriwala, Mundaro, Harappa are very, very big, 150 hectares. Smaller are also there, but there's no biggest city in that regard. It's about how much you have excavated. Okay. No, everybody, till today, people don't want water lines and sewage lines to be in the same place. Okay. What type of questions can be asked from this topic? They can give you statement-based questions and talk about the characteristics, which is that they can give you the characteristics statement-based questions. That all Harappan sites have a grid pattern. Is that statement correct or incorrect? I will come to Lothal and all. Please wait. I know that you know about Lothal. I know that you know about Dholavira. That's an incorrect statement. This is how the questions are asked. It is incorrect because Manavali is an exception. Not all sites have a grid pattern. Majority of them have it. Manavali is the exception. Now, for example, they can ask you that, for example, that all brick sizes in the Harappan civilization were the same measurement. then it is going to be an incorrect statement or correct statement? It's a incorrect statement. It says measurement. Measurement means in centimeters. It is incorrect. But if it says that all bricks were in the same ratio, then it is correct. So these are the things which you need to understand. This is the thing which you need to understand. These questions are asked as statement-based questions. More than that, if you remember these 9 points, you will automatically have to write this down if they ask you the salient characteristics of the architecture and art, or the architecture of the Indus Valley civilization. So when we will do art and art and culture, this is the first thing we do again. So pay attention to this, because this is what makes Indus Valley civilization so important for the UPSC. UPSC wants you to learn about the IVC, because this tells us that 5,000 years ago, we had a very strong ancient urban civilization which flourished with multiple sophisticated aspects which even today do not exist. So every house has a toilet, every house has water management, every house has drainage systems, every house has fresh water supply, every house has a courtyard, every house has gates into the side streets, grid pattern, citadel. See, spatial division is something very important. Spatial division is something very important, because you understand that before they actually started to make this civilization, they thought about it and started. They did not randomly start to develop something. This is the beauty of that. That is the basic point you need to remember. We are going to come to who governed them. That is something which we are going to discuss. Wait, be patient. Now, multi-story buildings is there. It's not something special, but it is unique for the Indus Valley civilization. Okay. Now, how can I ask mains question? When we will reach art and culture, we'll talk about that. These characteristics, Vanshika, are common to all sites. All sites have their own peculiarity, but Indus Valley civilization sites mostly will exhibit this same thing. Okay, now I'm moving forward, because we are giving too much time to something which really doesn't matter. Now, this is the bricks we are talking about. Extremely uniform. And wells were there for water management. And though this street doesn't really survive the way it should, on this side you have the fresh water supply, and on this side you have the drainage supply. And therefore, this main street was going with water supply on one side, drainage supply on the other side. And in certain cases, we have also found that the drainage system were also covered with small slabs of bricks. So in areas, they also had covered drainage systems so that it does not spread disease. So the Indus Valley civilization that way is exhibiting features which are absent in modern cities in that regard. Now, this slide is very, very important for you, because this is bringing a lot of different books, important points into one slide itself. The street is narrow. It is more than enough for that period. Don't think it is going to be a highway 8-lane. It is more than enough. Now, were there street lights? Ritika, for street lights, what do you need? For street lights, what do you need? How do street lights work? What is the prerequisite? Electricity. So electricity came. Come on. 5,000 years ago, electricity is there. Okay. We are coming to that question also. Now, this slide rather, brings all the unique elements of each of these sites in one place. So, for example, Mohenjo-daro has one of the most important sites or unique buildings we found till this point. From the Great Bath, which is basically the concept of ritualistic bathing. Ritualistic bathing. We will talk about it when we'll talk about religion. Ritualistic bathing, which is that people used to, it's a swimming pool basically. It's basically a swimming pool. Don't use the word baptism. There's nothing called Christianity at this point of time. Ritualistic bathing, it's basically a concept of people bathing together ritualistically. We do it everywhere, wherein the concept of the Kumbh Mela, the concept of Ganga Snan is basically based on this ritualistic bathing itself, which is that you bathe on a certain day with ritualistic value. Then you have granaries. Granaries are nothing but where you keep the surplus resources, specifically food. Then we've also seen an assembly hall, which is a very big hall, which for where the seating is there for people to sit and stand. And we have also a very interesting building which is called the College of Priests. We believe that it was somewhere. We think it is that it is a college of priests. This is all conjecture. This is based on the British understanding of that building, unfortunately. But we believe that it may have been a college of something for sure. I'll tell you why there are a lot of gray areas in the Indus Valley civilization when we'll reach there. But the point is that we believe that it is the College of Priests. That is the name the British gave it to, but it could be something else also. Then at Chanudaro, we have found something very interesting, which is stone weights. So they were using weights and measures of their own understanding, and across the whole civilization, same level of weights and measures were used. You also have what is called as seal making. Seal is, I'll show it to you what is a seal. I'll talk about it also. These are seals. These are basically stamps. Basically stamps which are there to stamp the merchandise which the Indus Valley civilization produces. So the seals, they're called seals. A very close up of a seal I'll try to show you here. This is a seal. It's called the Pashupati seal. We'll talk about it. Now, other than that, Harappa, though a very big site, you have granaries there only as the most important thing. Chanudaro, Chanudaro, yes, Chanudaro will KK discuss that in art and culture. Is an exception because it does not have a citadel. Yes. Now comes the most standard point on which students tend to either debate themselves only, but there's no debate. Is that horse bones have been found in a site called Surkotada. And there is no doubt, no doubt, no doubt that horses were known to the Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. Were they used? What was their use is a separate issue altogether. So there was a question which came in the examination. UPSC had to give a corrigendum in which they had to give a different answer. Rarely happens, but first key said that it does not have, then it was challenged, and thereafter with multiple resources, so what we call as sources available talking about horses, the UPSC to change the key. So there's a corrigendum which is called. So I have no doubt that horses were known to the Harappans. You should also have no doubt that the horses were known to the Harappans. No doubt at all in the examination if they say horses were known and used in the Harappan civilization, sure. You go with that statement. Other than that, we don't know other details. And it's not just not just Surkotada, which is the first one. Even at later sites such as Harappa, such as Lothal, we will find and we do find certain bones in certain areas. So horses were known to the Indus Valley civilization. Please remember this point very clearly. Thereafter, Kalibangan is a very important site because it is known for fire worship, which is fire altars, and both citadel and lower town were fortified, which is they were having a boundary wall. So they had this tradition of making their cities with boundary walls, which is not again something standard. So there could be something unique about that site, which I'm discussing with you. Then comes Lothal dockyard. This is considered the most ancient port in India. wherein from the Arabian Sea, ships used to travel up till Lothal in Gujarat, and thereafter taking the merchandises across the whole Harappan civilization. And see, Kishan, we take the most broadest interpretation. If they had horses' bones, they would be using it also. So we are presuming that. That is the only thing. So we don't know what they were using them for, but we know that if the horse is available, they would be using it also. We'll talk about that, Abhishek. Wait. We'll talk about religion, then we'll talk about temples and all. Then the most important site and the most celebrated site, which now is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is Dholavira. Which is Dholavira. Dholavira is basically a masterpiece when it comes to water management. When we will discuss in the art and culture part, we will discuss architecture. I will show you why Dholavira is such an important site, because water harvesting, water management, and the whole plan of Dholavira is totally different. It's a totally different type of site. And at Banavali, where we also find the radial pattern, we also found a very interesting house. It is believed that it is a jeweler's house because he has multiple precious stones such as lapis lazuli, carnelian, and gold and silver, and they were basically making jewelry out of it. So it's a jeweler's house, and that is a very interesting site we found at Banavali. Now, do you have to remember this? Yes, you have to remember this. This could be make or break because this is what they will sprinkle across the whole examination. These are the most important features of these sites, and you have to remember them in that regard. So, we have since the beginning discussed how, discovery, characteristics, and important sites. Now, can I go into the next most interesting feature of the Indus Valley civilization, which is economy, then give you a break, and then talk about religion, society, polity, and decline? Okay. Are these such a specific? Yes, they're specific. They're specific to these sites. So they don't become exceptions, but specificities of these sites. Okay. It could be a wild horse or horse. Horse is a horse. Okay. Shell making means they are taking the shells coming from the sea and then manipulating it to make beads and all. Can I make? You can go to these sites, Anjali, if you want to. If you're in Gujarat, if you're in any part of this, Rakhi Gadi and all is open. It's an archaeologically, it's an ASI protected site. You can go there if you want. Dockyard means port. Port. Yes, Deepika will talk about that also. Okay. Now, what makes the IVC is the fact that for the first time in Indian history, first evidence of internal and external trade. Internal and external trade. These sites are enough for ancient India? Yes, Kamula. What are written in the PPT? But there are 1,000 sites. Going through the map will help you in being at least familiar with them. That you have to have important sites I'm already discussing with you. So first evidence of internal and external trade has been found in the IVC. It's all barter trade, no currency or modern economy. But what makes IVC so interesting is that within the Indus Valley civilization, they are well connected, and the Indus Valley civilization is also connected with the world. So internally, there is raw material which is moving. So for example, if tin and copper is available in one sector, that tin and copper is extracted and sent to all parts of the empire. If there is what, for example, Shotugai was a site which was the most important when it comes to lapis lazuli. They don't have coins. No currency means no coins. That is implied. Lapis lazuli was actually excavated and in the Shotugai sector. And from Afghanistan, northern Afghanistan, it used to flow all across the Indus Valley civilization. So internally, they are moving around raw material that allows for standardization and uniformity also. And externally, they are exchanging commodities. Commodities. So internally, when we talk about it, there's high degree of standardization, mass production of craft items, and Harappan sites have yielded a lot of craft. For example, the Khetri mines in Rajasthan used to supply copper to all across the empire. Rajasthan again gave them lead and zinc, and the Haryana sector, which is the Tosam area, gave them tin. The square things which I showed you are not coins, they are seals. Seals is a stamp. Stamp is not a currency. Now, from Gujarat, semi-precious stones were going across the empire. And from Afghanistan, lapis lazuli, which is a semi-precious stone, was coming into every part of the empire. How was this trade happening internally? It is believed that a two-wheeled cart, which is a bullock cart, was used to make the people and the goods move around in this area. Bronze and terracotta models of the carts have also been found. Basically, we found toys which are carts, which basically indicates what is the transportation system. If you will go today into a toy store, you will always find car, aeroplane, a train. Basically, they represent the transportation system. Same way, they have small terracotta. Terracotta is basically sun-dried clay. So if you take the mud from your garden or from any place outside, you add a little bit of clay into it and then you heat it, it becomes terracotta. Terracotta is the easiest raw material available everywhere. So sun-dried clay and even sometimes what's called bhatti or kiln-dried clay is called terracotta. Traders were moving around, and you don't have to learn this. Please understand this point. These are points not to be learned. These are points to be understood, which is that there is internal trade. Don't start to learn the areas from where things are coming, and don't start to learn the aspects related to which animals are used. From oxen, sheep, goats, and donkeys, don't try to learn this. Just have to be familiar with this concept that what makes industrialization is internal trade. Are we all on the same page with regards to this? Do we understand what is the purpose of this discussion? Yes. Now, what are the commodities which the Harappans used to produce? From different types of potteries to different type of necklaces and jewelry to bangles to beads. Harappans were known to have lot of craft specialization. Craft specialization is something which was astonishing when it came to the Indus Valley civilization. They were producing 30 to 40 different types of commodities which they were using themselves also and sending it across the different areas also. So the point is internally all of these areas are internally connected. This is the map of an internal trade network. This is the internal trade network which basically existed. So from the upper parts of Peshawar to internal parts of Afghanistan to the Kalibangan to the Ganeshwar sector to the what we call as the Indian side till Gujarat till Surkotda, all of them were connected through certain lines. So think of it like how today India different types of raw materials are flowing across India itself. This is something which is unprecedented that way. Unprecedented and very, very modern in that regard. This is why the IVC is called the first urbanization. It's called the first urbanization because we have never seen this level of what we call as internal trade, sophistication, and town planning. There are also what we call as wheel turned pottery, which is there. Wheel turn mean you would have seen pottery is made on wheels. These wheels on which you will make the pottery itself. So this spins around and you shape the pottery on that. Wheel turn pottery is also something which is interesting. They grow all types of grains. See, if you look at the whole sector in which they are operating, they can produce wheat, barley, rice, watermelon, grapes. I will show you the whole list is there. They do everything. So very simply, the pottery is also very sophisticated that way. But what is more interesting is that when it came to how they decorated this pottery, a very peculiar feature about the Harappans was they never represented human figures on pottery. It's a very interesting thing. They had multiple patterns, but this will help you. This is an exception, and that will help you in answering questions in the examination. These are the points which are asked in the examination. They will say the pottery in the Harappan civilization was decorated with human figurines. That is technically not true. Very rarely we find any human figures on pottery, and we'll see pottery closer when we'll be in art and culture. So you try to understand one thing. Every period I'm discussing, art and culture part I will discuss with you separately, because then it becomes more coherent. And we are discussing political, economic, social, religious, and cultural. We will discuss separately. Now, if this was the case, and this is where the Harappans used to stop, they went a step further. The Harappans were not just trading internally, but they were connected to the Mesopotamian sector, to the Oman, to the what we call as Saudi Arabian sector, and Iraq and Iran. See, the Harappans were not alone in civilizational aspect. They had contemporary civilizations also. The most well known and the most advanced was Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia is basically the Indus Valley civilization of the West. Indus Valley civilization of the West. Wherein Mesopotamia on the Euphrates and Tigris River, the most advanced civilization which preceded the IVC and also succeeded the IVC later, but was also contemporary of the Indus Valley civilization, it operated near Baghdad. Now, why is Mesopotamia so important to us? Because whilst we have not been able to figure out what the IVC people wrote, Mesopotamian script has been deciphered. It's called cuneiform and proto-cuneiform. Cuneiform is a language, is a script which was deciphered because the Harappans left behind the key to read that text itself. And what we see in Mesopotamia is that a word called Meluha is used multiple times for a place from which certain imports were happening. And when Meluhan artifacts were seen, they turned out to be Harappan artifacts. Basically, Harappa was called Meluha according to them, and the Mesopotamians were importing multiple things in that regard. So the Mesopotamians used to import from India in that sense. Lapis lazuli, carnelian, gold, silver, copper, ebony, ivory, tortoise shell, chicken like birds, dogs, cats, even monkeys. Meaning animals are also coming to that area. Meluha basically is considered to be the name which the Mesopotamians gave to us. But it's not just that Mesopotamia was connected. Through very small boats, through Lothal port itself, they were also going across into the Magan and the Oman sector itself, which is from Hisar to Kalenisa, Supa, Susat, Yaya. These are sites which are here. You can see here Shotugai, Hisar, Siak. These are sites which are in the land route itself. And they have also yielded Harappan, what we call as artifacts. So from Kish, Nippur, and Ur, the three most important cities of Mesopotamia, you don't have to remember the names of the places, but what you have to understand is there are multiple channels of trade which existed at this point of time, and this whole world was connected with each other. From the Mesopotamian sector to the Meluha sector, which is us, to the Magan sector, which is Oman, to Dilman, which is Qatar. The fact is that these are the names which they used to give each other, which we got, or do we get it out of the Mesopotamian script itself? The fact is this world is not independent to each other. It is a connected world with multiple important cities. And these cities which you see, Mundigak, these are actually connected with each other, all through land routes. IVC was first or Mesopotamia? Now, this is an emotional question, but Mesopotamia. Mesopotamia is a much older civilization, just 500, 600 years difference, but Mesopotamia is first. Doesn't really matter. It's not our civilization and it's not a competition. So, very simply, what I mean to say is we are fortunate to have a civilization which paralleled other modern civilizations across the world, and we were the most important cogwheel in its trade. So it's not that we were not sending anything to anyone. From needles to spears to vessels to copper to bronze, we were the ones who were also able to figure out how to make bronze quickly, which is an alloy of copper, and therefore seal making was created to mark these items with what is called Mesopotamian concept, or what we call as Harappan symbols. So when they used to send an artifact, they used to take a seal and then impression used to be put on it so that it says that it is coming from Harappa. It's basically like a stamp on it. So the Mesopotamian, the I'm saying the Harappan period is, or the IVC is a very, very good example of what we call as a sophisticated, internally and externally connected civilization with town planning in itself. Now, what is the problem which we find with IVC? And this is the last point I'm going to make before I give you a break. The biggest issue with IVC, are we clear with regards to internal external trade? Yes? Again, please don't quote me the Mohenjo-daro movie. That the Mohenjo-daro movie was a type of jewelry as perfect example. Please don't do that. That movie is inaccurate. They had no idea what they were doing, and they were basically just making things up. So please, if you watch that movie, unlearn it and unwatch it if you can. So we understand the concept of the town planning and we understand internal external trade. Now, the biggest issue which we face with writing, or the biggest issue which we face with IVC is its writing. See, the Harappans wrote it. They had their own script and they had their own language. But none have been deciphered, or what we call as none have been decoded. Very simply, we have found a big signboard in Dholavira. It's called the Dholavira signboard. Very big signboard. We found close to 3,700 items with inscriptions on them. But the problem is that we have no idea what they mean. We don't know what they connote with a certain symbol. And it's basically a pictographical script, which is that they assign certain meanings to pictures. That is the problem. And for the past 5 years, I've been getting to know that the IIT Delhi and other IITs are using AI and machine learning to figure it out. But for the past 5 years, I've been listening to that. Nothing really has come out of this because the Harappans made it in such a difficult way that AI and machine learning is also not able to figure it out. Too complex. 400 to 450 different symbols they have used. We have 26 alphabets, but 400 to 450 symbols were used to connote something. Now, this basically makes most of our task very difficult because if you don't understand the script, we don't know what they were actually saying. So, if you don't know the script, how will you know the language? That is the problem. That even if we knew the language, only when you understand what is written down matters. Harappan person is not alive after 5,000 years. So it's about understanding what they wrote. While the Mesopotamians were very kind enough to write or have a document which basically had the way to read it, Harappans did not produce a grammar book. And very simply, there is multiple gray areas in the Indus Valley civilization because of this. Because they were totally blind to the aspect of what they were writing down. But one thing which comes out of linguistic analysis, decoding it will be subjective. No, it's not that. It's understanding decoding a script is a science. That science is how what symbol connotes what phonetical word. That is not basically known to us. Now, what we know about one thing is that it is a certain type of writing which is called Bostrofenden. See, the word is Bostrofenden. Bostrofenden is a certain type of writing. We still are not clear about this, but this is the pattern which emerges. See, when you look at how we write today, Roman English script goes from left to right, and Arabic script goes from right to left. This is how we write. When I write something down that I am going to the market, and then I will again come back to the left so as to get something to eat. So I'm coming back to the left again. On the other hand, if you see Arabic, it starts from the right and goes to the left and again comes to right. Bostrofenden is a different type of way in which you consecutively change the side. So left to right, then right to left, then left to right, then right to left. It's a very interesting way of writing it. Basically, the word does not go like this, it goes like this. So I would write the same thing like this in Bostrofenden. I am going to the market so as to get something to eat. So you see, I went like this, then I went like this, then I went like this. It's called looping. Most probably, this is something like this. It's going left to right to left to right to left. We get to know about Bostrofenden because the wording or symbol system is like this. Maybe when we decipher it, it does not turn out to be Bostrofenden. The linguists have been able to figure that out looking at certain patterns of similar words in that regard. So Bostrofenden can be figured out. That is the job of the linguists and the script scientists in that regard who understand script in that sense. But we have no understanding of the script in that regard. And this basically creates a big issue for us because we are blind with regards to what they were writing, and there are multiple writings in that sense. So, what we've established before I give you a break, and for the students who are curious about society, it is a socially stratified society. It is a society it is stratified according to craft specialization, and because the citadel exists, there is some power structure, whilst people could be equal in status socially. Economically, that would not have been true, because there are people who are jewelers, who are merchants, who are workers. So there's a lot of craft specialization. So because there is division of labor, there would be a aspect that egalitarianism, as one of you pointed out, would not exist. Egalitarianism does not exist when there's a lot of trade, because then you have people who are working, who are sitting. There's a division in specialization. But as I said, because the Harappan civilization had all the major ecological zones, they were using wheat in Harappa, in Mohenjo-daro, barley. We have evidences of millets. We found rice. We found millets. We found grapes. We found a very interesting thing again also, which is cotton. It is believed that Neolithic period in Mehergarh, we find the first evidence of cotton. But cotton cloth was produced for the first time in the world by the Harappans. So cotton cloth was something which the Harappans developed for the first time. Cotton was known previously, but they did not know what to do with it. But they were the ones who developed cotton cloth, what you wear as cloth. So they knew how to make cotton into a cloth, which is in itself a very sophisticated understanding. So before we leave and we come back to discuss religion and the aspect related to other aspects of polity, we have irrigation channels, we have plowed field, we have bones of multiple animals. So it is a very diverse society. Since the beginning, what we've discussed is characteristics. We've discussed trade, economy, society, writing, and geography. Anybody has any issue in any of these aspects? Cotton, Kishan, could grow in this sector. Could grow in this sector. Yes, you need black soil, but they had a modified way of using it. And the Gujarat and the Maharashtra sector, they were using it. No issue? Yes. Society, stratified, craft specialization, multiple types of resources, multiple types of crops, multiple types of animals. Nothing too big, nothing too small. Trade, both internal, external, internally for raw material, externally for commodities. So economy is sophisticated, internal, external. Society is stratified with craft specialization and division of labor. Are we clear? Main occupation of the people is not specific. You could be a farmer, you could be craftsman, you could be an artisan, you could be a power person, you could be priest, you could be anything. Characteristics is what we discussed in the beginning. So don't ask me to repeat everything. The 9 characteristics which we discussed in the beginning is what are called the characteristics. If we all are on the same page, we take a break here. It is not a simple society, it's a complex society, because there's craft specialization, there's power structures, there's uniformity, there's an issue of whenever there is a uniformity and standardization, there has to be power structures. And when there are power structures, there will always be division of society. And as it is, when there is agriculture, there has to be complexity also. Can we take a break? Okay. Now, when we come back, religion, polity, decline. 3 small topics, and then we move to the Aryan migration. So there is on yesterday I told you, when there is agriculture, there will be state formation. Didn't I tell you that Fleming's rule, that if there is agriculture, there will be state formation? This civilization is so advanced that it has trade. So obviously there will be surplus, then only they are trading, right? Use your understanding that it's a progression over Neolithic. So the characteristics of the Neolithic will obviously be exhibited by the Chalcolithic Bronze Age civilization. So it cannot be simple society. It cannot be egalitarian. Okay, right. What about modern history has started in the evening? In the evening. Okay. I see you at what is 7:50. Let's come back at 8 straight. You take your break. 8 a.m. we come back. and we take the story forward. Because for 4 or 5 minutes, I don't want to do. 8 minutes, or 8 o'clock, we come back and we take the story forward. Please, 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 now consolidate. It is not difficult, it is straightforward, right? Okay, thank you. Welcome back, Kishan. That's good. That's good. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay. We have gone through characteristics. We've gone through the discussion on trade. We've gone through the discussion on society, all indicating towards the right tag being given to IVC, which is first urbanization. Gold and silver coming from import, Aniket, is also there, but we have our own mines in that regard. Coming from certain parts of South India, the Kolar mines, it is believed that which are available in Karnataka, were supplying gold to the Harappan civilization. So the internal trade was sometimes even with the non-Harappan civilizations, and the trade could and was very, very extensive across the Indian subcontinent. So we have evidences that the Kolar gold has been found in the gold in Harappan civilization. So the KGF mines were actually supplying certain amount of gold and silver to the Harappans. That is the level of intricacy which was there at this point of time. And that is the level of connected nature which was there. Now, on the other side, the thing which we now need to discuss, is there any other civilization similar arrangement? No. Ilma, it is specific to the Indus Valley civilization, citadel and lower town complex. It's a very specific thing to the Indus Valley civilization. Now we need to discuss a very important aspect, which is religion. Now, till the Indus Valley civilization, we've seen rituals, we've seen burials, but we had not seen any form of proper religion being developed. However, the Harappans did have a certain type of religious understanding which was uniform with their identity. They are basically called, their religion is called naturalistic religion. Basically, they used to worship, and which is basically also something which we do in Hinduism, which is they used to worship nature, which is supernatural aspects of the world are worshipped by them. So, water in the form of ritualistic bathing, you have fire altars in Kalibangan. We also have worship of trees. We have multiple references to tree gods and tree worship. We have references to animal worship. And in a way, everything which was nature or natural was in a way revered. That's what's called naturalistic religion. The origin is in the nature. We do it till today. We have certain festivals which are based on the worship of sun, the worship of god, of moon, of water, of fire, of plants, tulsi, people. We do it. So very simply, naturalistic religion is inbuilt into Hinduism, but this is not a proper religion, but it is the first major religious understanding which is developing. So naturalistic religion is basically worship of nature. However, we have not found temples of any deity in any site. So it's not that we had a proper temple being constructed, no temples. We also have very interesting aspect that we have found no evidence of warfare from Harappan sites. So we have not found swords, we've not found any form of defensive gear itself. So no evidence of warfare we found from Harappan civilization. But there were mother goddess and male figurines, which is female and male figurines as personification of nature and gods. In this first you have what is called the mother goddess figure. So we understand that there is people worship, there is fire altars, there is burials. We also understand the fact that it is all based to naturalism and naturalistic religion. But the most interesting thing is that we found female and male figures also. Now, the female goddess figure is one of the most interesting one because it is not just found in India but across all old civilizations, all ancient civilizations. Guess what a mother goddess figure would represent in nature? Very good, Anshika. Yes, very good, Kishan. See, it is basically land and fertility. So, mother goddess figures have always been found near agricultural societies wherein the fertility of land is linked to female figures. They are the bearers of civilization. They are the ones who take civilizations forward. And therefore, much like agriculture and land, the fertility of the reproductive capacity of the woman is linked to the fertility of the soil. And this is a connotation, this is something which we found across all civilizations. We already know that they're doing great bath, which is water worship. But now comes the most interesting aspect, which is the Pashupati seal. Now, this Pashupati seal has also been called Proto Shiva seal. And what we can figure out that it is a early rendering of Shiva and yogic position has been seen. Now, there's one thing which you need to know for UPSC, and there's one thing which you need to know as a student of history. For the purpose of the examination, what I've written on the screen is enough. That we have a male goddess or male god and Pashupati. Pashupati means animal husbandry. So this seal represents Proto Shiva, an early rendering of Shiva. Yogic positions have also been indicated, along with the script which is there, which we've not been able to decipher, and a animal husbandry linkage wherein you have the elephant, you have the rhino, you have the bull, and you have the tiger represented. Now, till this point, this is what you need to know for the examination. But there's a problem. There's a problem. But that is beyond the examination. And only if you promise me that you are not going to distort your vision and not get confused in the examination, I will tell you what is the academic understanding of this. Because for the purpose of the examination, this is what you need to know. However, beyond that, there is a certain understanding which creates or makes this Proto Shiva Pashupati seal problematic. Right? Promise? Not going to overthink it, just for your academic understanding. Yes, Ilma. Yes. Okay. Now, there are three issues. First is that, is this a Pashupati or Patni? Nobody knows. Firstly, is this a male or a female goddess? We don't know. Just by looking at it, you can't figure that out. That if it is a male or a female because there is a certain cloth which this figure is wearing, and it could be a male or a female both. First. Second is using the word proto Shiva is a problem itself, because the Shiva concept within Bhagavad Puran and Shaivism is quite late. It's not linked to the Indus Valley civilization. And basically, it was the British distortion of this concept, wherein British saw the figures of Shiva when they came to India, and when they saw the seal, they said Proto Shiva. So, yes, it is a meditative position. Yes, it is a type of meditation. Is it yoga? Again, that is a stretch, because yoga is a more Vedic, six schools of philosophy based concept. Meditation and the concept of it's a little bit late again, not linked to the IVC. It is meditative, sure. However, now we start to stretch things to fit this explanation. So, whilst I will teach you, when I will teach you religion, first religion in India, the first religion in India is Vedic Brahmanism, or what we call as early Hinduism. And early Hinduism is not based on Shiva and Vishnu. It is based on Varun, Indra, Agni, Aditi, which are called naturalistic gods within Vedic religion. It is later that when Buddhism and Jainism dominated for a very long time, that Buddhism and Jainism was challenged by Bhagavatism, Bhagavad Puran. Therein comes the Dasavatar concept of Vishnu, Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, along with the concept of Shakti. So the problem is that what you are looking for in this, you will find. But the problem is that it is technically not correct. Technically not correct. So that is the issue, which is that we are pushing something on. This is basically called, in historical terms, it's called anachronism. Anachronism is called Kal Bhram in Hindi. Kal Bhram. Basically, when you start to push modern concept on the past, it's called anachronistic understanding. That you are looking for something for in the Indus Valley civilization, you'll find it, but it may not be have been that. So, as I said, we don't know the correct gender of this figure, be it Pashupati or Patni. It could be either, it could be a male or a female. Second is that it is yogic position, sure, but again, yoga is not something linked to the Indus Valley civilization. And third is the concept of Proto Shiva. Using the word Proto Shiva itself is problematic, because how early Hinduism develops or Vedic Brahmanism develops is a totally different concept altogether. So, Indus Valley civilization is naturalistic religion, but using these terminologies tend to push things which basically are should not be pushed on it. So there are three issues academically with no real clarity, because until unless this seal says Proto Shiva, we cannot be of any clarity about this issue in regards to that. Are we clear about that? See, when nobody is sure about the gender, why would you Pati? Because the British called it Pati, so it's Pati. The British called the Mongols, but Mughals never called themselves Mongols. They were Timurs or Timurids. So this is a basic issue. This is the basic issue. These are all British-based interpretations. So I try to understand this point. I will also, when I will discuss with you art and culture, discuss this concept of unicorn seal. They call one of the seals as a unicorn seal. There's nothing called unicorn in this world. So understand this, that these are Western notions being pushed onto ideas which are basically Indian. So we'll talk about these things when we'll reach art and culture. But the point is, you already know how Europeans are, because you've done world history. Some of you have done world history with me. You can't expect too much from them. The point is simple, straightforward fact. It's called the Pashupati seal for the purpose of the examination. It's called the Proto Shiva. It's yogic position. Are we clear with regards to religion? There are three things which I have to emphasize in religion: no temples, naturalistic, male and female goddesses, and Proto Shiva seal, indicative of yogic positions. Are we all clear about this? Because you have promised that you will not forget this aspect in the examination, because that is what really matters. You don't have to distort your understanding for this in that regard. Okay. The seal is made out of a stone called ceatite. Ceatite is a soapstone. These are aspects we'll discuss in art and culture. It's soapstone. Soapstone is hard enough to carve, but not very, very hard to, not that brittle also. So you can carve well and it holds the shape in that sense. It's called ceatite. Ceatite. Steatite. Okay. Sir, male god depicted what? Animal husbandry. Pashu ka pati. Pashu means animal. Animal husbandry. Who named Pashupati as Pashupati? British. British ASI. How do we know that they worship nature? Because Great Bath, Fire Altar, throughout Kalibangan, these are indicative of it. We have certain seals which show people standing in front of a tree. That is again in a way indicative of tree worship. So there are things which we see. Sir, it resembles bit of Hinduism. Then why didn't we loom it as earlier version of it? Because you will realize that Hinduism has nothing to do with the IVC. IVC is the Hinduism is linked to Vedic civilization, and Vedic age and IVC are not connected to each other. No connection at all. This is the next topic I have to discuss with you itself, Aryan migration. So what you're talking about are Aryan gods, and these are not Aryan gods. IVC people had nothing to do with Aryan culture. I'll discuss that. Separate issue. Maybe have been matriarchal, sure, but it would have most probably been patriarchal only. Okay. They used to worship rivers, sure. They considered worship of river god, goddess. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. We don't know. See, understand this point. There is no language we know about them. So were they using god and goddess also? We don't know. Please understand this point. I have told you what to remember for the examination. That is what you remember. Proto Shiva, male, animal husbandry. Okay. We'll discuss Vedic Brahmanism when we reach Vedic age. These things are not to be mentioned in the examination, yes. But we discussed that humans are not depicted in paintings. But it is not a painting. This is a seal. There's a difference between seal and a painting. If they are worshipping mother goddess, why are they patriarchal? Priyanka, very good question. Do we worship goddesses today? Yes or no? Durga, Shakti, yes? So India is matriarchal. So then why are you linking goddess worship with matriarchy and patriarchy? The same place where we worship Shakti, a woman is not safe. That is patriarchy for you. So don't worry. Okay. We will discuss previous year questions, Ashida, once we've covered everything till Vedic, and we will cover those questions tomorrow, every Friday. Don't worry. Previous year questions will give you nothing. They have already been asked. But still, I will do it for your satisfaction. Concentrate here. Can we talk about polity and decline and end this section? Okay. Can we say early religion in IVC emerged out of reverence? Sure, reverence and fear both. Religion is based on fear also. Again, Ilma, you are pushing through Durkheimian theory on IVC. Durkheim, not even his one cell was born when all of this was done. Don't push Western ideological ideologies on religion on India. Seems all this totem votem, it seems nice, but Durkheim had no understanding of the IVC. They are Eurocentric concepts. Let it be Eurocentric. Okay. how they were able to do so much this early? Commitment. They had nothing else to do. Understanding. They did not have to clear the UPSC examination. That's what the answer is. They were developing it because they had to do it. So they did it. This is how civilizations go forward. Human existence is about changing nature. That is what they did. Yes, there's no answer to what you're asking me. That is how human civilization goes forward. Okay. How can it be understood as an androgynous figure academically? And it is human figure. Come on. You are saying that it is a alien. It shows human like features. Now let's not go to a point where we start to question human figurines itself. It is representative of humans, but you male and female, you cannot make out like this. Okay, now I want to move on. I want to really move on. Means Mesopotamia discovered Indian symbol. No, that is not true. It's the other way around. What is the word anachronism? Anachronism. Anachronistic. Okay. Now we come to polity. Good conversation we had. I want to now have a discussion about political, because a lot of you were talking about political before we had a conversation about it itself. Yes, Pashu means animal. Animal. How was marriage as an institution set up? Again, we have no idea about it. Ritika, try to understand this. Everything is conjecture if we don't know their language. Archaeological evidences can give you a certain set of understanding, but they cannot. That is what I, Oshin, want to say, that you are now questioning the physiology of that whole itself. So we cannot come to conclusions about certain things just based on archaeological evidences. Now tell me one thing. What is this? What am I holding? What am I holding? This is a pen, right? But it is a pen because you and me call it as a pen. If I go and give it to a tribal, for him it's nothing. It's nothing. Try to understand this point. Something which has meaning for you may be meaningless for someone else. So it's about the language of symbols and symbolism. This is a little bit of Descartes for you, but the point is that everything has a meaning because you indicate meaning to it. So maybe that seal is indicative of something which we don't understand, and you are pushing your understanding on it. So try to understand this point, that there could be some meaning which is not indicative because you and me don't understand that meaning. So we are trying to figure out our own understanding into the past. And this is where things start to become problematic. That I'll show it to you that in Decline, the British wanted to push a certain agenda. And that is what you need to see through. So this is called your didactic understanding, your own linguistic didactic understanding be pushed onto something. But it's very high level. We're going into basically philosophy in a way. But the point is that, please understand this point. For the person who is in front of you right now, what does he look like? What does he look like? This figure which is in front of you. For some, it will be a king, and for some, it will be a priest. For some, it will be a king. It's called the bearded priest or the bearded king. But it may be that he may be an artisan. How do we know that priests used to look like this only? The problem is because our priests look like this. We say it is a priest. What if he is literally a beggar? ये भिखारी ऐसे दिखते थे इतने अच्छे. How do you know that it is not? He's not a beggar. That is the point I'm trying to argue to you, that you are looking for something. This is called anachronism. You are looking for something and you will find that something for sure, but that may not have the same connotation at that point of time of what you think. Get my point? If you understand this point, you then will understand the political aspect here. See, we, when it comes to polity, are very unfortunate, because whilst we know that there is standardization, we know that there is a citadel complex, we know that there is standardization, we also know that there is uniformity. If there are these three things, then we know that there is a central authority for sure, because uniformity and standardization can only come when there is a centralized authority. True, Anjali. The whole history of Harappan civilization may change with the language being deciphered, sure. Now, there is a central authority for sure. For sure. But the problem is, we don't know what is the nature of this polity. Nature is not known. We know it is a mature state, but we don't know what is the nature of it. Certain people say it is priestly rule because there's a mother goddess figure. And certain people argue it is merchant rule because trade was very important. So maybe traders were controlling society, maybe priests were controlling society, maybe either women were controlling society. If you will say to me right now that, for example, that the artisans used to control society, that is also correct. The point is that in this area, when it comes to polity, we don't know if it is a monarchical system. We don't know if it is democracy. We don't know what is the nature of the polity. We don't know who is controlling everything. We just know that there's a polity. And this is called how history becomes gray. Sometimes you don't have black and white. You sometimes have mixture. I cannot plausibly say as of right now if you are correct or incorrect when you say that the political setup was in the hands of monkeys. I cannot plausibly say yes, I cannot plausibly say no. Because there's a possibility that it could be the case, there's a possibility that it could not be. Probability could be high or low, but probability will still remain 0.01% for sure. So it is maybe a democracy, maybe anarchy, maybe totalitarian state, maybe something totally or call. Basically, UPSC can't ask a question out of polity, because there is no consensus and there is no clarity in polity itself. We know that it is a mature state, we know it is a good state, but we don't know if what is the nature of that state. So because just we found this statue, there could be multiple statues, multiple sculptures. Maybe this was the sculpture of actually a beggar representing the society, and the real king statue is not there. This is a ceatite. This is ceatite, not terracotta. It's a ceatite. See, the bearded priest is a priest because you call him a bearded priest. He's a bearded king because you call him a bearded king. The simple, straightforward point, what I'm trying to argue is that politically we have no clarity. So we can't come to any conclusion. So while in trade, in characteristics, in society, we had evidences, but nature of society again is not very clear to us. Here we have no idea what it is. Get my point? That politically there is no clarity, and UPSC can't basically ask you a question because there is no real clarity. But I will tell you one thing. Remember this for the examination. UPSC examiners who set the papers think they are very, very important. Obviously, they are making the paper for UPSC. And if they say that a certain section of society is ruling the Harappans, And if it is between priest, merchant, and a king, go with it. Because most probably that examiner either does not have understanding of IBC or is trying to push his own understanding of IBC. Now, this is where the complexity emerges. What does the examiner think in that sense? So, if he's given a very big statement, very convincing statement about certain things, that Harappans were either ruled by merchants and priests, go with that statement. That's a correct statement. Because most probably they are trying to push their own understanding. But I have never seen, and there, till this point, there has been no question on polity till this point. Because polity is problematic, equally is decline. So with characteristics, society, economy, polity, and religion, can we now decline the Harappan civilization and talk about a very interesting phase of Indian history, which is the period between 1700 and 1500? Yes? Okay. I hope you are now thinking like a historian, because this is what this area teaches you. Sometimes there's no right and wrong answer. That is the biggest problem. Now we come to decline of Indus Valley civilization, which sets in after 1900, 1800 BCE and goes on till we believe that it's 1700 BC. It was the most severe. Some parts will go on till 1300 BCE also, but by 1700 major areas were gone. Now the British, John Marshall, he came up with a very interesting theory. Now listen to me. Indra is called Purandar in Vedic understanding. Vedic age is next itself. Don't worry about it. I'll tell you about that. So Indra is Purandar. Purandar means breakers of forts. The one who breaks forts. Now at one random site, John Marshall found 16, 17 dead bodies together. And there were certain signs of warfare, basically arrows being basically the skeletons are showing arrows in them. Basically that person was killed by an arrow strike. So now John Marshall builds a Manghadant Kahani, a very well cooked theory that there were people called the Aryans who wrote the Vedas, because the Vedas itself says we the Arya wrote it. The people who knew Sanskrit language, they came, they fought, they invaded the IVC and destroyed it. Now there are two issues with it. Firstly, the evidences of warfare and people dying because of war is only in one side. And that cannot be true for the whole civilization. Second is Aryans migrated into India rather than invading it. There's a difference between migration and invasion. What is the difference between these two things? Migration and invasion? Violence. Force, violence, and war. Now, put your colonial hats and tell me, why would a Britisher argue that a very big civilization got destroyed because of certain invaders? Basically, he's justifying colonial rule in India. That by hum bhi same hi hai. We are the Aryans. He is trying to argue that what makes India is invasions. There has always been a civilization, which is the Indian civilization, and throughout history, foreigners have come and invaded and took control. So nothing changes. We are the Britishers, we are the new Aryans. We have invaded you. You are a worse civilization. So we are now going to rule you. So while Aryan migration is correct, which I'm going to discuss with you in the next 5 to 10 minutes, Aryan invasion never happened. This is basically a colonial theory. This is to justify the actions of the British in India. This is how history gets distorted. So can we say that plausibly, can we say that Aryan invasion theory more or less doesn't make sense, or is the least plausible out of these four I've written in front of the screen? Because there is too much of a conjecture here and too much of a simplistic understanding, and more or less in academic circles Aryan invasion theory has been scrapped. We don't talk about itself. It is just a British led propaganda about invasions, foreigners, and the Indian subcontinent. Now come the more interesting or more plausible reason why the Indus Valley civilization failed. Now, in its youthful phase, what does a river do when it enters into the plains? Geography. Erosional phase is when it is in the upper stages. It meanders. Very good. Very, very good. Meandering. Meandering is that when the river starts to change its course. Starts to change its course. So this is called meandering. Can lead to also oxbow lakes and all. But it meanders. When it enters into youthful river, enters into its the plain phase, it starts to meander. Because it starts to deposit on the sides and therefore it starts to meander. Now, basically, imagine that I am a Harappan site and this is B Harappan site. And a river used to go like this from A. Now, does B have any right in brief Aryan invasion theory? Because I will not validate the Britishers by even writing about it. By writing it, I'm basically giving it authority. I'm not going to do that. Now, is this river a threat to B? No. But what if over centuries this river starts to move in the direction of B? Not 1 year, 2 year, over centuries. Now, it will do two things at the same point of time. At A, it will lead to what is called desiccation, or rather I'll use the word which is more common, which is drought. And here it will do flooding. Now, this is basically what the next two theories argue. That in certain stages, in certain Harappan sites, we find that there is extreme dryness in certain levels, which means that there was a lack of water. And because these civilizations were based around water quite a lot, it could have led to the fact that A would have very simply, their irrigation channels, their water would have gone away. Wells could have sustained them for 1 century, 2 centuries, not for 3 to 4 centuries. Rainwater harvesting can't feed the whole civilization. And in certain sites, we are seeing that there's a watermark. You see that if a room is filled with water and it is drained out of water, it leaves a mark on the walls. So in certain walls, we are seeing that in certain sites of the Harappan sites, there is a watermark on the walls, which means that there was a lot of flooding in that sense. So very simply, in certain areas, there was flooding and hydrological issues. In certain areas, there was desiccation. And also, it is believed that there was a warming of this area with it was not as arid as it is today. Afghanistan, Pakistan is very arid area, except for certain tracts. But this area, rivers started to disappear and it became extremely arid or very water deficient. So, in certain, very plausibly, in certain areas, we see that the Indus River may have not been on the course it is today, and this may be the meandered course in that regard. And second, that there is evidence of drought and flooding both. So there could be natural disasters which happened in these civilization, in these sites, and they were never able to recover out of it. And there's also one concept that with the decline of Mesopotamia, there could also be the fact that the exchange economy also declined, and that also localized the Indus Valley civilization. So there are multiple ways in which we are talking about decline again. And again, UPSC can't give you a definitive question out of this area because there's no definitive answer. In certain areas, there is flooding. In certain areas, there is desiccation. There is drought. In certain areas, there is trade linkages is gone. So economy is destroyed. So it could be a plethora of factors working together. But one thing is clear that after 1700 BCE, the Indus Valley civilization was not going to be the way it is. It got localized, smaller centers, and then they disappeared. So Mesopotamia will decline later. But what if the smaller localized sections which were left were surviving, but when Mesopotamia was gone, that also went. So why trade will go down? Maybe the Oman sector went away, the Qatarian sector went away, the Mesopotamian sector went away. Maybe there was disruption of trade because of some reason. So the decline may have been gradual. It is gradual when it is between 200 years. But for some reason, the point is very simple, straightforward. The Indus Valley civilization started to show signs of decline by 1700, 1600 BCE. So before we move on to the Aryan invasion, Aryan migration, lower, middle, upper Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic, Harappan civilization. I have covered this with you till this point. Paleolithic is known for fire, Pleistocene. Mesolithic is known for microliths, domestication of animals, burials. Neolithic is known for agriculture and state building and complex societies. Chalcolithic is known for first use of copper. And Harappan civilization, now we are able to understand. I'll give you the timeline again before we end class today, which is the timeline. I'll keep on adding to that timeline which I made yesterday. But are we clear with regards to why is Harappan civilization called first urbanization? What are the characteristics? What is the polity, society, economy, and trade and religion of this civilization? Third point of decline may be with decline of overseas trade that could have led to disruption in economy, that could have also led to issues in certain sites not surviving in themselves. Right? Okay. How do we conclude on periods of civilizations? You very simply said it is a very significant phase. It was known for these things. You conclude like that. As it is, you don't have to write the mains answer here. Okay. The theory with Saraswati River is that there was a river here. We have now found archaeological evidences of it. If there was a story, there's an understanding it was a mythical river, but we found that it is there. Okay. Can I now talk about the Vedic age? Now we are entering module number 2. Module number 2. And for module number 2, as always, every module I tell you which chapters. R.S. Sharma, 3 chapters NCRT, and 1 chapter from 12th class. You don't have to go through them. This is for your self-referencing. But if you want to, you can do. All of this is in the PPT itself. Now I want to talk about Aryan migration and the Vedas. Can I do that? None of the reasons can wipe. Yes, no one reason can wipe out the whole population. It is a plethora of reasons. Bronze is the main metal. IVC is copper and bronze. Our week module number 1 is over. Your prehistory and industrialization is over. We have now entered module number 2. Anybody has any fundamental issue in first module, and have your misconceptions about history been broken by understanding that there is much more to it than actually just learning facts? And I can guarantee to you that the factual part is only 10 to 20% of the syllabus. Everything else is logical and interesting. So can we now talk about this Aryan, and discuss this issue of Aryan invasion, Aryan migration? Okay, perfect. Which is better, old or new NCRT? Nothing is better. New NCRT you should read. Old NCRT is nothing but RS Sharma. Decline, Akula, as I said, could be flooding, could be drought, could be trade localization, economy destruction. What is meant by BP? Now, if you will read a very specialized history book, you will find BP, before present. Before present means that when carbon dating was developed, before that. So it's BP, the reference point is 1950, but of no purpose to you. Yes, Deep. Yes, Deep. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Aryans. But before we do that, something which I've done with you, with some of you, but some of you, I have to discuss it again. First is the difference between race and ethnicity. Race and ethnicity. 3200 to 1500 existed. How did we know about that? That's because of carbon dating. We have carbon has a half-life. We use that to find out the age of rocks, and through that we can make out when the brick was made. C14 carbon dating is. Okay. Now, race, ethnicity. Race is a physical concept which is how I look. So me, an African, a Chinese, and an American, do we look the same? Do we look the same? No, because all of us are racially different. Ethnicity is cultural difference and similarities, which is based on language, clothing, etc. So a very good example of ethnicity would be a Chinese, a Japanese, a Korean. Do they look the same? Do they look the same? Yes, they are racially the same. But are they actually same? No. They are ethnically different, culturally different. So, very simply, ethnicity is, for example, in India, we are racially the same, but we are ethnically quite different. A Rajasthani, a Gujarati, a person coming from MP, UP, Bihar, Bengal would be having different ethnicities. We have different cultural values. So we are in India, we are multi-ethnic. Now, different races can also have the same ethnicity. I'll give you an example. I speak English, a Chinese can speak English, a Britisher can speak English, an American can speak English, and a Latin American can speak English. So we all are speaking the same language, but we have different races. So understand this point. Race is a physical attribute. Ethnicity is a cultural attribute. So the fact is, race, and nobody's banned the word race for some Atma. Race word is banned now. No. Since the beginning of the class, you're telling me which words are banned. Race is not a word which is banned anywhere. And you use the word homo, I can't use. Again, I'm saying homonid. You are taking a different homo altogether. So race is a word which you can use. So very simply, Race is a physical concept. Ethnicity is a different cultural aspects. Are we clear about these two aspects? What is race? What is ethnicity? Okay. Now, why are we discussing this? We get the word Aryan in the Vedas. The Rig Veda has been written, the first Veda has been written in a language called Sanskrit. Vedas has been written in Sanskrit language, and the concept of a script called Brahmi script. Brahmi script. Brahmi is the mother of all scripts in India, and Sanskrit was the first major language of the Indian subcontinent. But now the question is, from not understanding any word which the Harappans wrote, how did we come to this language and script? The answer to that question lies between this period of 200 years. These 200 years, we have no evidence, nothing, but we have a theory. We have a theory what really happened. It is believed that the IVC, Indus Valley Civilization, declined independently. It declined in the northwestern sector. And at the same point of time, certain people started to migrate into India. Now, there's a debate which I'll discuss when I'll explain Aryan concept with you, into India. And these people were considered Aryans who wrote the Vedas. Now, what is this concept of Aryan? In order to understand that, we need to do a little bit of an analysis. See, if I look at Sanskrit language and I look at English, or if I look at Sanskrit and Iranian, there are multiple similarities which come up in the language phonetical system. For example, matar, mother, pitar, father, bhratar, brother, swasar, sister, dhutiyar, daughter, sama, same, siri, serial, manu, man. If you go to Iran, yajna, yasna, hotar, zotar, mitra, mitra, arya, arya, dhutiyar, duktar. And if I make it even bigger, I take into Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, English, Armenian, Irish, Lithuanian, and Albanian, the similarity comes out even more. So you look at the words and their phonetical similarities are very close. So from Greek to Latin to English, they are showing the same type. Yes, I cannot pronounce Sanskrit. Sure. Wrong pronunciation. Yes. Take away marks from me. Now listen to me what I'm telling you. So stop making an issue of a non-issue. What I mean to say is that there is a internal similarity in their pronunciation and in their what is called as etymology, which is how they are showing a certain type of similarity. Now, this commonality cannot be a coincidence. This commonality could not be a coincidence. And based on the linguistic analysis, there is this concept that all these languages are part of one family. And that family is called the Indo-European language. The origin, the fact that all of these languages are similar to each other is because their mother is the same. when they went into different sectors, they started to develop regional quirks and they started to change. So they all start as one, but as soon as it went into different areas of the world, these people started to evolve their language to give us regional languages which are there, but they have similarities because their mother is the same. Now, basically, if you go by this understanding, what it turns out is that Aryans were a ethno-linguistic group which migrated into the Indian subcontinent from Central Asian sector, and the Indo-European language evolved to be Sanskrit. So Aryans are a speech group or linguistic group, which makes them a ethnic concept or a racial concept. Racial or ethnic? Ethnic. They're an ethnic group. What we believe is that Aryans were nomadic pastoralists. Basically, they started from Central Asia and they started to migrate in different parts of the world. And from their core area near the Caspian Sea, they started to spread across India, into Europe, into Anatolia, into Central Asia. And that will show the close affinity of these languages. And the Aryan word, which has been distorted by Hitler as a racial concept, was actually an ethnic concept. And that is why the symbols of these people is also very, very simple. Why are they migrating? Because pastoralists migrate. When you have cattle, you look for land to graze. When your grazing land in a certain area is over, you move forward. So they are basically people with cattle moving around. Now, I would like to show you how it actually works and how it would have worked out. Can I do that? I'll give you a working model and then I will put in this Indo-Aryan concept itself. Yes? Okay. Now think of it like this. It's very simple. It's extremely simple that way. See, there was a sector in which there were multiple races. These are multiple races. But what was common to them was they spoke same language. Can that be possible? Multiple racial aspects or multiple racial groups having the same language? That can be the case. Perfect, great. Okay. Now let's take that language as X. That language is X. Now these races started to migrate out of where they were in search of better lands to graze their animals. And they reached A, B, C, and D. And A already has a regional language or dialect, which is 1, for this is it is 2, for this is 3, for it is 4. This is the name of the dialect. Now what happens is, with these people trickling down into these areas, what will we get? X1, X2, X3, X4, which is intermixing of the regional dialects, regional languages with this language which these people are bringing in. And it is this X1, X2, X3, and X4 which now become new language group. Think of it like this. This is Indo-European language. And this is for you German, Armenian, Sanskrit, and English. Now do you get it? How they are in a way connected to each other, because X is something related to all of them. There is no concept of nation state. There are no national boundaries. Everybody is open to go wherever they want to. There's no nations. There's an open, this is the period we are talking about. The world is an open canvas. So for the purpose of the examination, Aryans are racially different but ethnically same. And what this model shows you is how different languages developed out of the same mother language. Does this make sense? This is not ratification. It's a proper logical concept which is there. But there's a controversy over it which I want to discuss. Are we clear with regards to what is the most plausible accepted theory, which is Aryan migration into India, and the way it would have actually happened? There are different races, but same. How can that be? That it can be, Likhani. That area is not that it's like 1 kilometer. It is a very big area of thousands of kilometers. Multiple races exist with very blurring boundaries, and they speak the same language. They interact with the same language. That can be the case, and thereafter that can evolve over the period of time when it interacts with regional languages. What is the mother language of the Aryan people? We call it the Indo-European language group or Indo-European language. We gave it that because it has both Indian and European languages. Where did that X emerge? X emerged with these races and with their races and in this area which is Central Asia. They used to speak a language through which they used to interact. That is X. That is the main language. Why these languages are so different? They aren't. That is what I'm trying to tell you. They are picking up their regional biases, but they aren't. This table was to show you that as much as you think they are, they aren't. If you are a linguist, for you, they are very similar. They are all being linked to, they are all linked to the same language group. This is X for you. That this is the language which basically becomes more and more diverse as it goes. So, very simply, Aryans are racially different, ethnically same, or linguistically same for sure. So, very simply, they all are different races, but obviously, they are different races. Slavs are different, Germanics are different, the Italians are different. In a way, the Armenians are different. We are different, but aren't we not different races speaking the same language? Linguistic, what I see, nobody is going to ask you to explain this concept to you or to the examiner. I'm trying to tell you just that Aryan is for the purpose of the examination, a linguistic group and a speech group. Are we clear about this? They have nothing to do with what Hitler did with this concept, which is to argue that it is something related to race. That Aryan are a people. It is not people, it is language. Are we clear about this? Yes or no? Now, now, now there's a controversy. Now, there's a controversy. And the controversy is that either it is inward migration or outward migration. Either it is inward migration or outward migration. Please understand this point. Meaning that there's a whole set of Indian historians who argue that Indo-European language is not the mother of languages. Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. Now, this is the problem. Yes, Pooja. This is the problem. That one section says outward and one section says inward. Now, for at least decades, there has been a proper debate over this. Aryan migration debate, it is called. That is Sanskrit the product of Indo-European language or is the mother of Indo-European languages? However, recent genetic studies of this whole linguistic group, all the languages which I told you, the genetic study is pointing towards inward migration. Because if it was outward migration, there should have been a genetic marker from India which should have been there in everyone else. But rather it is the other way around. From the Central Asian sector, there is certain genomic markers which are indicating towards a certain link between these two sectors, which means that that population migrated from that area and came to India and not the other way around. Now, I leave it to your judgment. Whatever you want to believe, you believe. But for the purpose of the examination, they are a linguistic group. Inward, outward is your call. You want to argue how it genetic markers indicate migration, because if the original people migrated from this sector, they are racially different, linguistically same, but that racial marker is going to show in the population of India, and that is what is happening actually. When we will discuss medieval India, I'll tell you about Mongols and Genghis Khan. 65% of the whole population of the world shows a genetic indicator of how they are related to Mongols or Genghis Khan. So in your genomic sequencing, your ethnicity, your racial identity can be picked up. And if there was no intermixing, there should be homogeneity in that genomic sequencing, which is not being actually shown. So it's actually much more complex than actually what you think. But inward is the most accepted theory. Outward could be a more what we call as nationalistic historians wanted to argue, wherein it was more about how colonialism was now being challenged. That you are not the one who gave us our language, we are the ones who gave you your language. So there's a lot of politics behind this debate also, which we don't need to get caught up in. So are we clear with regards to the concept of Aryan concept, Aryan debate? Yes? Yes, Abhishek, in a way, there is a Aryan connection of everyone. This is why I tell you that Aryan culture is different from Indus Valley culture. Because again, genetic analysis and any cultural similarities are not there. And if there would have been any form of cultural interaction, then the Indus Valley people would have been showing evidences of Sanskrit or what we call as Brahmi, which is not there. No, no, Mongols are not Aryans. Mongols are Mongols. Mongolite. Now, now, if we understand the core concept, I want to now discuss about what is called the Vedic age. Introduce it to you, and then we can stop and summarize everything. Anshika, that is also a theory, a, a politically oriented theory, but makes no sense. That would not have been true in a way. Again, Satya Prasad, that may have been true till a certain point, but for today it is not true. Okay. Now, why are we having this discussion? Why are we having this discussion? Amrit will talk about that. We will branch out we are right now, Vedic age is a very specific thing in North India. We'll branch out into megalithic once we are done with Mahajanpadas. Once I'm done with Mauryas, I brought the story till a certain point in North India. Then I'll talk about megalithics and Sangam age. So don't worry about that. Now, what I'm trying to argue, when Aryans invaded, what was India like? Again, Tulsi, I'm telling you not to use the word invasion. It is a migration. It's a standard trickling of people from this sector with no conflict with the indigenous population. So it's not it's not an invasion, it is a migration. Please be careful about these small things, because these words can change the connotation of what you're saying. Okay. When Aryans came, IVC was not there, more or less, or IVC was going from a declining phase, because the root is different. Root is different. And the 200 years where we have no understanding what is happening, that is most probably the period in which this is happening. Who conducted the genetic study? Because you are going to say that the Europeans conducted it, so it is biased. A genetic study had representatives of all countries which are considered Indo-European. So it's a proper joint study which has been done. Now, when we talk about, but the question is, why are we discussing Aryan? Because we need to know the authors of the Vedas. Authors of the Vedas. Now, this is the oldest copy of the Rig Veda which we have. It was discovered in Kashmir, and the language which you see on this is Sanskrit. But for the Sanskrit specialists who are talking about pronunciation here, you basically will not be able to read it, because this is Brahmi script. Brahmi is the original script in which Sanskrit was written, and this script and this language was brought in by the Aryans. They could have been simultaneously with us. Sneha, you are also right. They could have been separate. You are also right. There's no evidence for nothing. But one thing is clear, IVC never exhibited Aryan culture, so there is no interaction for sure. So the Devanagari script, Old Tamil script, Telugu, Kannada, any script which exists in India today has genesis in this script, which is called Brahmi. So it is believed that the Aryans brought in Rig Veda, the Sanskrit language, or developed the Sanskrit language in Brahmi script from their own culture, and they wrote a very important text, a whole set of texts which are called the Vedas. Now, the first Veda, which is Rig Veda, when you read it, you get a picture of a social and economic milieu. And that is called the early Vedic age, 1500 to 1000. And when you read the Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Ved, you get a totally different picture of society, which is called the later Vedic age. Vedic age is actually the first period in which we call it as early historical, because this is the first time we are reconstructing the whole period not by the concept of archaeological evidences, but fully with the concept of linguistic or literary sources. We are now entering a phase in which finally their language is understood by us. We have deciphered the script. Prinsep did it for us. James Prinsep was the one who broke the Brahmi code, and we now understand Brahmi. And when we understood Brahmi, we were able to figure out what language it was, which is Sanskrit. And therefore, the Vedic age is the way in which we transition from prehistory to proto-history to history. And this period onwards, it's called the early historical phase. And now we will reconstruct the history through texts. Both the Rig Veda represents a certain social milieu and economic milieu, and the Sam, Yajur, and Atharv represents a certain other type of milieu. And therefore, when we come back tomorrow, we will reconstruct these two phases and the genesis of all social evils in India can be seen in the 1000 to 600 phase and in the Vedic Brahmanistic society, religion, and economy. So, tomorrow our agenda is we'll understand Vedic age, we'll understand early Vedic, later Vedic, and we'll understand Mahajanpadas. And Mahajanpadas, we will reach till Alexander's invasion tomorrow. And very simply, we are now moving towards the Mauryan, the post-Mauryan, Gupta and post-Gupta phase. We are out of the archaeological centric history and to now textual history in that regard. Right? Okay. Vedas are not connected to Hinduism, but Aryan Hindus might be. No. Hinduism, as we see today, is directly connected to the Vedas. IV text, the IVC texts are deciphered, so IVC will. If IVC text gets deciphered, it becomes history, not proto history. Okay. Now, can I summarize what we've done today? Okay, perfect. Now, see, this is the script, Brahmi script. For the specialists, this is the Brahmi script. This script is the mother of all scripts. Brahmi script and Sanskrit language are brought with the Aryans, which is the old religion. You are asking me an emotional question, which is the oldest religion, right? The oldest religion in the Indian subcontinent is Vedic Brahmanism or early Hinduism. I call it Vedic Brahmanism and not Hinduism because Hinduism is based on Bhagavad Purans and Puranas. That transition will happen in the Gupta period, which I will tell you later. So every first will be told to you, but it is Hinduism in an implied way because the base of Hinduism, which is Vedas, is basically the oldest religion, Vedic Brahmanism, which I'm going to teach you tomorrow. Okay. Now, let me summarize what we've done today via that timeline. We started at Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. Then, whether I've brought them too close to each other. Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and now I add Indus Valley civilization. When I write Indus Valley civilization, I am already talking about Chalcolithic phase. And I am not going to write about the non-Chalcolithic Harappan cultures, no, or rather non-Harappan Chalcolithic cultures, because that is very standard, not important to our story. Now, Paleolithic, no state, no state. You have early state formation, mature state, but nature is not known. Thereafter, simple society, complex society. You have complex society with social stratification and craft specialization. Thereafter, you have no trade, no trade, no trade. We don't call them egalitarian societies, we call them simple societies. Simple society is egalitarian automatically. Internal and external trade. Thereafter, hunting and gathering, HNG, hunting and gathering and domestication of animals, hunting and gathering and domestication plus agriculture, and here again hunting, domestication and agriculture, all three exist together. Thereafter, fire, microliths, burials and rituals, pottery and agri tools. Here it is going to be naturalistic religion with male and female gods, and pottery, seal making and craft diversity. Thereafter, something common, no tax, no currency, no tax, no currency, no tax, no currency, and no taxation. As we know it right now, no currency. This can change if we decipher the script. Burial rituals, microliths. No temples. Okay. Thereafter, we add the time period, 2 million BCE to 10,000, 10,000 to 4,000, 4,000 to 2,600, and this is basically 2,600 to 1,900 BCE. This trade is based on barter system. There is no barter system in Paleolithic Mesolithic. There is no surplus to do it. Here you can add town planning, first urbanization. Microliths are small tools which over and above the bulky tools which were here. Bulky crude tools. Microliths are tools which can be tied to sticks and thrown. Add sedentary life if you want to write sedentary life. So till this point, whatever we've studied, is it clear to everyone? This is basically consolidating everything till this point. Yes, rituals are there also. Very good. Rituals, burials. So if you can understand this slide, we can then shift and Pleistocene, Holocene. If we are clear about this whole slide, we can break for today. We'll meet tomorrow and we'll start Vedic age. Clear? Everyone? Yes? No trade. Yes, Deepika. Don't worry about that, Sneha. Inward, outward doesn't matter. You just remember it is inward, Aryan migration, no genomic sequencing you need to remember. So when people of IVC had a script or a language, how they could propagate it without any education institution? How do you know that there was no education institution? If you don't have a question, you can leave the session now. Thank you so much. I will see you tomorrow same time. And don't worry about these things. It will become more and more easier as we go on. It is interesting. If you don't find interest in this, then you don't find interest in yourself, because this is your own history. Understand this point. This is your own history. Why you are what you are today is because of this. So remember it. And this will help you in sociology, anthropology also in that sense. Okay. There is, Sneha, nothing with regards to that. That's the archaeological mystery over a river. That's it. Wheel will be Mahima in Mahima between Paleolithic, Mesolithic, in between both. Is not the Indus Valley civilization is not the first civilization of the world. That will be a wrong way of saying it. Mesopotamia is considered to be. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you. I'll see you in the evening if you are doing modern India. If not, tomorrow with art and culture, with ancient medieval art and culture. There's no continuation of IVC script. No, that whole civilization goes into oblivion. No indications on us. Puja, it is in Gujarat, Rajasthan sector. It counted in both. It's on the basically there are two Tilwaras, one in Gujarat, one in Rajasthan. So we are talking about the Gujarat one. Because inward migration resistance would have been there maybe, but over a period of time they became accustomed to it. The trade will happen over exchange of things, no coins. It's barter, it's not coinage, no currency is there. Sedentary life means to stay at one place. Okay, see you.